So welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I'm sharing with you how to crochet the double chain arch edging. It's not the most simple of edgings to get started on, but once you have, and I'm going to show you how, it creates a almost rippled effect by the chains interlocking with each other. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out another one of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. Now I'm going to be adding the double chain arch edging onto this cushion design, and if you're working this onto any other project and you're not following along specifically with this pattern, you need to work one row of single crochets onto the edge of your project before you work the next steps of this edging. So for me, I've used my foundation row of single crochets to join together my two panels of my cushion. Your foundation row of single crochets needs to be a multiple of 3 stitches plus 2 stitches, one for each end, because the chain itself is worked over 3 stitches twice, or in this case 1 round of chains across 3 stitches, and then we move the pattern across 1 stitch to repeat the chains so they become interlocking. As we move through, that will make more sense, so that's why you need an extra stitch. Instead of normally we'd just do a multiple of 3 plus 1 when it comes to single crochets, we're doing a multiple of 3 plus 2 because we're working it twice. Assuming that you've already worked your foundation row of single crochets and they are a multiple of 3 plus 2 stitches, we're going to work the first round of the double chain arch edging, starting with a chain 1 to begin our round. We're going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch that we worked that chain 1. Just 1 US single crochet. We're then going to make a chain of 5. So we just yarn over and pull through 5 times. 3, 4 and 5. We're then going to skip the next 2 stitches. So we skip 1, 2, and we're going to work a single crochet into that next stitch along, and we're going to repeat this all the way down, in this case to my corner. If you're working this on just on one edge of a project, you would have 1 stitch unworked. For us, we're going to end in this final stitch, so we're going to repeat this a few more times and then I'll leave you to continue. So we make a chain of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We skip the next 2 stitches and single crochet into the next. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Skip the next 2 stitches and single crochet into the next. So continue to repeat this all the way down. For us, we're going down to this first corner. If you're working any other project, you continue all the way down to the end of your row and you will have 1 stitch remaining. And I'll meet you once you've reached the end of your row. If like me, you're working your edging onto your cushion or onto a square, you may find that you worked all the way down to your corner and then you've met your chain 2 space. We're simply going to slip stitch into that chain space and then into that next stitch along before we repeat the same all the way around our cushion. So work a chain 1 and then a single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, followed by our chain of 5. Skip the next 2 and then work your next single crochet. What we're creating is the first portion of our shells or our chain spaces here, and when we work our second round, we're going to work in these chain spaces or around them. Not around them actually, we're avoiding working around them, but we're going to be creating this on each of our edges of this cushion. If you're working around a square, you can do the same. I've left out this corner space because that will be filled with the other colour. So continue to repeat that all the way around and across your row if you're working on a flat edge. and I will meet you for our second row very shortly. Once we've worked this all the way around the square, it's brought me back here, and I'm going to slip stitch into the bottom of that first single crochet that we made just to join, and then we can fasten off colour A in this case. I'm going to leave a nice long tail just so we can weave that in later. And then we're going to change to colour B. Now this can be any colour, of course. So I'm going to be using the Furls Wonder yarn in Moonbeam for my colour B. So here's our tail where we've just fastened off. It is on the wrong side, or the right side as the case may be. And where we're going to join our yarn is quite simply into the stitch next to where we did our first single crochet. So there's my first single crochet, and this is the stitch that I'm going to be joining into it. Now, if you've ever seen this pattern written down, this edging pattern written down, it can be quite confusing as to what it means where it says don't work over your chain. The way that we're adding our second yarn in is we need to be a little bit careful, because what we're looking to do is not work over our chains. We're actually working in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do is insert my hook into that second stitch next to my original stitch. I'm going to place my yarn over my hook as normal, but I've worked through the stitch and through the arch, if that makes sense. You can see I'm through my stitch, through the arch and out the back. Pick up my yarn, bring it back through. Now I like to do a little chain one to secure. So what I need to do is to make sure that I'm inserting my hook back through the arch to capture that yarn and do a slip stitch that way. And that just secures my yarn, always inserting our hook back into the arch. So the first thing we're going to do is to work a single crochet into the same stitch that we've joined. So for this, I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, and I'm coming back out. I'm not working through the arch at all. It's come straight back out, bringing my hook back through the stitch as normal. The only difference is, instead of just yarning over and completing, move that tail out of the way for a moment, what we're going to do, so we're going to insert our hook to complete this stitch to pick up the yarn. So we're not just going to pick up the yarn and work over our arch, quite the opposite. We're going to go back through the arch, yarn over, and bring it through the arch and then through the stitch. I'm going to undo that and do it all again for you, just so I make it super, super clear. So we're beginning by inserting our hook into the stitch next to that first single crochet that we made. We're not coming out the front, we're going right the way through, so our arch is unencumbered or encapsulated, however you want to call it. I'm going to place my yarn over my hook, nice long tail, that's the wrong way, nice long tail. Going to bring it through the stitch and through the arch, and then for my slip stitch to kind of just to secure it, or my chain one, I'm inserting my hook back through the arch, yarning over, pulling through and straight through the loop of my hook. We're then going to work a single crochet into this stitch. So we're inserting our hook through the stitch, back out, avoiding our arch. We're not actually working into our arch here, we're working underneath it. We're yarning over, bringing our hook back through the stitch again. To do our yarn over to complete our stitch, we're inserting our hook into the middle of that arch to yarn over, bring our loop through, and then finishing by pulling through those two loops on our hook. So this way, in theory, the arch is still, pull my hook out for a moment, the arch is completely on its own. There's nothing worked around it or on it or anything. I'm going to put my hook back into that loop. But the next stage, once we've worked that single crochet, is to work our arch. This is where we yarn over the arch itself. So instead of going back in to start our chain, we're going to work over our arch. So we're simply yarning over as we would normally and pulling through to chain. We're making a chain of 4 this time. So that was 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're then going to bring our hook up and let go, because we're going to insert our hook into the next arch and pick up this working loop of yarn. You can either do it with your fingers. If you're clever enough, you can use your hook. I can't. And then we're bringing this loop back through our next arch along. Once we've brought our working yarn back through, we're inserting our hook into that next stitch and out the back again, not around the loop. Yarn over, bring a loop through, so you have your 2 loops ready for your single crochet, and remember to go underneath your loop to yarn over, pull through, and through those 2 loops to complete your single crochet. And this is what's going to create this spiral looking edging. We then make our chain of 4 again, so we yarn over, pull through 1, 2, 3 and 4, bring a loop up and out, let go, bring your hook out, and we're inserting our hook into the next loop. Going to pick up our working yarn, put it back onto our hook, just pulling that to tighten, and then we can bring it back through that loop, ready to work our next single crochet. Just inserting our hook into the next stitch, straight out the back, leaving that loop untouched, yarn over to bring your second loop up. This time when we're inserting our hook to yarn over, we're not touching that purple loop in my case, and that's worked our single crochet. We then make our chain of 4 again, 2, 3 and 4. So once you've made that chain 4, we're bringing that loop up, make it as big or as small as you want. We're then going to insert our hook into that next chain 5 arch, pop the working yarn back onto our hook, and then bring it back through, ready to work our next single crochet. We're just going to repeat this the whole way down. Remembering to bring up that loop, insert your hook into the next arch, reattach your yarn, and then bring it back through to work that next single crochet. The important thing is that when you're ready to complete your stitch and just do that final yarn over, we don't yarn over the arch, we're going back into the arch to bring the loop through before pulling through those last 2 loops. You can see how gorgeous this arch turns out almost instantaneously when it's all pulled straight. It's just so pretty. I really enjoy making it. It's a little bit different, but it's really it's very effective. I'd like to work it up with some kind of neon colours as well, really contrasting, like a black and a white. I think would be really lovely as well. If you're working up this in a particular colour, do let me know in the comments what colour you're using. We're going to repeat this all the way down. If you're working onto the edge of your cushion, the same as me, I'm going to meet you when we reach this next corner and show you how to work that one. If you're working your flat row, you just continue all the way to the end of your row, fastening off after working that last colour B arch. So I've reached my almost last chain 4 arch making in my colour B, so I'm just finishing this one off now, working my final single crochet before the corner, and this time we're going to make our chain of 4, and this time we're working our chain 4 followed by a single crochet into the corner space. We can then continue on with our chain of 4, bringing up our loop as normal, inserting into our chain 5 arch, popping our yarn on before completing your next single crochet. Nearly did it in the wrong stitch then. And it just gives our corner a little bit more detail rather than just a gap at the corners. We can then continue to repeat this all the way around, working those chains of 4, inserting our hooks into the next space before working that single crochet all the way around. So each time in the corner we're working into that chain 2 space. if you're working this particular design, that's what it's been designed for, so that you can work your colour bee arch into the corner space to give a little bit more interest and intrigue. I really hope you've enjoyed learning how to crochet the double chain arch edging. As I said, it's not the easiest, but my goodness, it really is worth it when that's the colorway it gives you. It really does look like they are interlaced with one another, and they're really quite detailed. So thank you as always for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.